Pull the whole thing down. Are we in? Hi, Samantha. How are you? Good morning. Nice to see you. Let's spotlight your video. I don't know why she was in there. Hi.
Hi.
Sorry that took forever.
That's okay.
Technology, my best friend, my worst enemy. No, stay here. So my Craig and Ava were supposed to be here already to watch Jackie, but we'll see what happens.
I've got two noisy kids downstairs with my mom, so
perfect.
Hopefully they stay downstairs.
Yeah, so we're all in the same boat here. Let's
exactly.
Get over here this way, and we can talk. Okay. So good morning. Thank you so much for joining me. It's afternoon here, our time. Austin's been very interesting as of late. We've had these crazy bombings happening here.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know about that? It's just really nuts. So I'm just really happy to be here. So let's get going. I'm super pleased to have you join us all the way from Canada. Can you let our students know a little bit about you while I mess with this lighting really quick?
Sure. So I'm Samantha Gagnon. I'm the founder of the Maya's Nest Birth Services. We work out of the Fraser Valley and Lower Mainland area of Vancouver in British Columbia. I'm originally from the Philippines. That's what this accent is. My mom is British with very blonde hair and blue eyes, and that's why my face doesn't match what my son is kind of like. So I always talk about that because people always look at me very confused. And I'm also the business mentor with Bebo Mia's Don't Do It Yourself program. So if you're not familiar with Bebo Mia, we're a Canadian-based company, but our most popular program is our MSP, so Maternal Support Practitioner training, which basically is doula training. And it's all done online, and we train people all over the world. And our next session starts this week, and it's a 16-week doula training for fertility, birth, and postpartum, so lots of really good information. And then after the course, you then get lots of business support, but our Don't Do It Yourself program, which is what I run, isn't just our graduates. It's also basically any doula anywhere in the world who wants to join and just get lots of support on building a really successful doula business. And I also own my own consulting company. So that's just under my name, Samantha Gagnon Consulting, where primarily I help doulas set up really good branding and also do strategy sessions for people who have very specific goals that they want to be reaching with their doula business. And I just sort of walk them through it and make sure that they're sort of ticking everything that they need to tick off the list to make sure they're actually achieving what their goals are.
That's a lot. It's amazing. And
I also have 2 kids, and I'm pregnant with my 3rd, so just adding more to the fun.
Yeah, no big deal. This is what I do. No, it's fantastic. I love Bebo Mia, just the way you do everything. I just love it. So, and that's why I wanted you here to share about the business side of things. I think that's the hardest part for a lot of doulas. I think we all have the heart for the work, but maybe not the mindset for the business.
For sure. And when I started my doula business about 3.5, almost 4 years ago, I was really concerned how I was going to build this business, because if you've ever been to Vancouver, which Gena, you have many times, we have a lot of doula, and it's a very busy.
A lot.
And it's sort of like the place where almost everybody knows at least 2 or 3 doulas. Like, it's not weird to know a doula. So I was like, how am I going to build my business when I'm not from here? I don't have the bonus of like lifelong friends. And my friends at the time I had a very small group of friends who had either already had their babies or were just not the type of people who were going to be hiring doulas. So I was like, how am I supposed to build this business, right, when there's so much choice out there? But what I basically did was I just used what I learned from my my background in business and in marketing. So before I became a doula, I was in marketing and in publishing. And I basically used what I learned there in sort of more traditional industries, and I put it in place in business, in my doula business. And I think that's sort of what made my business stand out a little bit, was that I wasn't sort of just doing what everybody else was doing. Wow. And yeah, I was, you know, working at it like any business.
Yeah. I think that's another big part of it. So, and I think too, like how it can be really scary for people who maybe are brand new to an area. Like I just moved here to Austin.
For sure.
I haven't been here in a long time. And so I think those kinds of things can prove to be really terrifying for brand new doulas. So where do we start? Like, where do we begin?
So I have a little slideshow. If I can share my screen, if that's okay with you.
Yes, it is.
Okay, let me set that up. Okay. Can you see it? Okay, I'll make it big. Okay. So I'm basically starting with the first step for building a successful doula business, and that is making sure that you build a brand that shines on your heart, so shows who you are and connects you with your ideal target market. So often this step just gets skipped. Like, you know, we kind of think, oh, I'll just make a logo and there I'm done with my branding. But that's not what branding is. You know, I'm in a lot of doula groups, and at least, I don't know, a handful of times a week, a different doula comes on and posts a couple of logo options, and everyone gives their opinions on which ones they like. And then when I ask who their target market is, because each logo speaks to a different target market, the answers I typically get are, I don't know, or anyone between 20 and 40 having a baby, which I get, that's our target market, but that's everybody, you know, that's not a target market. So we really need to make sure that we're really trying to define that a little bit closer, because once you can do that, then you're able to really define, like really specify what you're doing and make sure that everything you put out there actually makes sense to the people who you want to work with. So remember, branding is not just about your logo. It's about your brand's total identity. So the words that you use, the images that you use, the colors that you use, the way you dress outside, the way that you present yourself outside, this is all connected to your brand. And if you're not starting from the beginning and thinking of your target market, then whatever money you spent on your logo is not gonna be very fruitful for you, because it's not connecting to the people who you want to be connecting with. So simple steps to building a brand. Like I said, who is your target market? I have a blog post on my website that sort of goes into a little bit more if you want to read that after. But basically, you want to make a picture of this person who you want to be working with, because marketing to a 20-year-old is very, very different to marketing to a 37-year-old, right? They hang out in different places, they're in different parts of their life, and you're going to need to approach it in a different way. And then other than like the regular demographics, so thinking about their age and, you know, how much they earn and what area of the city they live in, that kind of stuff, you also want to think about who they are, like what their belief system is. Because really, especially in birth is such an intimate moment that we're being invited into. And we need to be able to connect to our clients in a much deeper level than pretty much any other industry out there. So you need to really have a good understanding of who your client is inside, what their values are. and think about things like, for example, what their belief system is in their, like in their medical stuff, right? Like, do they follow, like, you know, do they go to the doctor for every single thing and follow whatever the doctor says? Or are they the type who prefers to try more natural methods for as long as they can until it's not working, and they then go towards Western medicine? Or are they the type who use natural or Eastern medicine or traditional medicine no matter what? All three groups are going to be very different, and you may connect with a certain type of group more than another. And it doesn't mean you don't support your clients' choices. It just means that you can connect in a different level, which is what we want to make sure you're doing, right? And other things to think about with target market is there something that you want to specialize in? Like, are you particularly interested in supporting VBACs? Or are you particularly interested in only working with home birth clients who want really physiologic births? They are going to have different needs, and they're going to have different pain points, and you need to be able to support them in that. So really build a picture of who this person is, and having a target market doesn't close the door on everybody else. It just makes sure that your marketing is very specific and really speaks to the people you want most. And then those people, instead of just being a customer, they become your brand ambassadors because they really feel connected with you. And that's what builds your name. You know, your client base and how they experienced your support, that's what will then make them go out and tell everybody they know about you. And that's how you're gonna, that's one of the easiest ways to build a really strong, busy doula practice. Next up is think of your mission statement. So what are, what is your sort of guiding message in your work, right? So for my consulting business, for example, my line is nurturing better businesses with celebrating the heart of each company. And I try to do that. Every time we do a brand build, I want to make sure that my client's heart and the heart of their business is really clear, because that's what we're selling here. It's, you know, doulas, as doulas, we're selling ourselves, right? We're selling what we can bring to the birth. And so it's important to me that my clients are like really shining in who they are. And at the same time, for my doula business, my mission statement is to nurture families in confident journeys to parenthood with compassionate support, education, and a family-centered focus. And this guides me all the way. This guides me every time I hire a new doula to make sure that she is in line with that mission, right? Next up is research brands within your industry. And this is not to copy. We don't need to copy anybody. This is just to see what else is out there. If there are certain niches that might not be met. And also, I am a big believer in making sure you reach out to your community of doulas, because you'll be able to find out so much more. And when, like, you know, one of the biggest lessons I ever learned from Gena was mudita, and that sort of complete happiness for my doula sisters. And I'm very lucky that I live in, you know, Vancouver, that's got, I think, the best doula community, because we really are super supportive of each other. And while arguments certainly have come up sometimes, it's always done so respectfully, and we just support each other, and we build a stronger birth community. So make sure you make those connections too, and that actually will help you in your branding and in building sort of the type of doula that you want to be. Next out is just figuring out your key qualities and your values that your brand has to offer. Your values don't change. Your goals may change, your target market might change, but your values are connected to who you are. And as long as you are true to who you are, and you're doing things that feel good and don't feel yucky, then you're gonna have a much more successful business. So make sure you understand what those values are for yourself and for your brand. Then you want to create a great logo, brand board, and a tagline. And I'll talk to you more about sort of the psychology behind the visuals of things in a little bit. And then you also want to think of your brand's business voice. So are you sort of a more relaxed kind of doula? Are you more jokey? Are you more spiritual? Do you want to sound super professional and sort of more corporate? These different languages will speak to different targets. And then just making sure that you are consistent with everything that you put out there and that your brand's personality is very, very clear. You know, studies show us, depending on which study you're reading, it takes between 3 and 12 views or touches for someone to then book a consult with you. That's a lot of views, 3 to 12 views. And if every time you're putting something out there, it doesn't match what else you're putting out, then that's a lost opportunity. So by being consistent with what you're putting out, you get to take advantage of every single touch, and that builds that trust in your client, with your client in what you're doing. So consumers are buying on emotion. It's really important that you put in the effort to connect with them. I love this photo. It's just,
I'm like sitting here going, oh my God, I love this so much.
This client was one of my very first clients. I think she was client number 5. And then she came back to me and it was client number 50 or baby number 50. And I just love her. Like, it was just such a nice show.
I love how that works. Client number 5 and client number 50. Yeah.
So what makes us love brands? If you just sort of think of yourself and what it is that makes you become a really loyal consumer to a brand, you know, the studies show us there are 3 main things that make us love a brand. Number 1 is our emotional decision making, so our emotional attachment to these brands and what they're saying and what they're doing. Number 2 is our personal identity, so how we perceive ourselves. And number 3 is our social identity, so how we want other people to be perceiving us. Research also shows that our personal goals and our ideals play a key part in creating connections with brands. And like, how true is that with birth, right? We have such big goals in our births, and we have ideals on what we feel like as the birthing person a birth should be like, we want our birth to be like. And when we hire a doula, so much of that is feeling that connection with this person who's gonna be seeing you do this amazing thing, right? So we cannot forget the emotional connection that they need to have with what we are putting out there. Because if they're not connected to your message, they're not gonna book a consult with you. So this kind of brings us to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So this is more of the psychological side of things. So Maslow basically said that we have certain needs, and there's a hierarchy on how important they are to us. So the bottom one and the biggest sort of need is our physiological needs. So what we need to survive, our food, shelter, those kinds of basic needs. Those things we always need to try to buy first because we need to survive, right? And then you move up to safety. So safety, this is for our family, for our personal safety, for our health, excuse me, and our emotional safety as well. And the unique thing about doula work is that unlike a lot of other industries, we can actually fit into so many of these needs, depending on the family and what their story is. So we could actually fit in safety because, you know, some communities don't have as many options as others. Some communities have very difficult birth cultures. And sometimes the doula is gonna be the only person there who is really looking out for them. And so for a lot of families, they will hire a doula for safety, not because we can do anything medical, but because we can help them in asking those questions so that they can feel safe in what's happening. Then we go to love and belonging. So this is our need related to our relationships. And again, doulas can kind of fit here. I have been hired many times by families who want me there because the partner wants to just focus on the birthing person. And Gena does a really lovely job of talking about partners and the importance of a partner if there is one, and the role that they're playing in birth. And I think that talk at that first flock, listening to Gena really sort of put into focus for me how true that is. And part of our job is sort of to be helping in that love and in that belonging and that connection. And we know that when a woman when a birther is feeling loved and feeling cared for, that her birth has a better shot of sort of going nice and smoothly. So that again is another place where doulas can be. Esteem, so our self-esteem, our confidence, our respect of others, our respect by others, and personal achievement. Again, doulas can fit in here too. And then lastly is our self-actualization. And so this is the top of the hierarchy. It may be the smallest part, but it's where so many of our buying decisions come from, is the self-actualization. So this is our personal growth and our realizing of full human potential. And if birth is not the ultimate realization of full human potential, then I really don't know what could be more, right? Like it's, and you know, we often talk about like holding space and being witness. And I think as a doula, that's my favorite part is, you know, after the birth, when she just, you know, the baby first lands on her chest and she looks down and then she looks up at you and she's like, oh my God, did you see that? When I just like that sort of complete excitement of this amazing thing that she just did, right? Like that is the best part of birth for me, is when she sees what she just did. And it's not about the exit of which the baby came from, but the journey that she went on, right? And I think so much of what we do is just being witness to their self-actualization. And while they may not process that at the buying stage of our services, it's there. It's part of their thinking process, even though they may not be fully aware of it. It's knowing that there's going to be somebody there who's going to see what I just did. And we need to be able to hit each of these needs. And when you really understand your target market, you can see these needs, and you can figure out what in each of these levels or these need levels can you help with? How can you support them in making sure all of their needs are met? And when we can understand our clients this way, or our target market this way, then everything that we put out there can then be focused on that, on their needs, right? So if you sort of think of your own birth or postpartum clients, what are some of their emotional desires, and how can you help them with that, right? So for example, I'm sort of just thinking of my own clients. One of the main desires of my clients is enjoying a sense of well-being in their births. They want to have a birth where they feel good about it. So how can I help them in that? How can I make my message and my marketing show them that I can support them in getting that desire? And I can do this by helping them seek a stress-free state in their birth without conflicts and without threats. And you know, a lot of that happens prenatally with our clients. A lot of that is encouraging them to make sure that they are birthing where they're comfortable. A lot of that is encouraging them to hire care providers who, you know, really are excited for them and want them to have this birth that they so want. And I can help with that, right? Next is another sort of big need for them is feeling a sense of freedom to birth the way that they want to birth. And for me, the way that I can help them do this is encouraging them to act independently without any obligations or restrictions. And it basically boils down to informed choice, which is my favorite topic of all topics, because I know that when my clients are educated and when they're informed and when they feel like they have care providers who respect them, that they are able to make decisions that really make sense for them and that they feel super proud of and can then birth the way that they feel they need to birth. And this all is reflected in what I put out there on my website, like on my doula website. If you go over to my website, you'll see that there's so much information because that's important to me. That's important to my client. That's what I know they want to have. So really, this all sort of just boils down to who your target market is, and also making sure that you understand what it is about, like what it is that they really need to connect with that, right? So the most effective way to maximize our customer value is to move beyond customer satisfaction and appeal to a consumer's deep and often unspoken emotional needs. And I've sort of skipped ahead, but when we're talking about the connection, when I first started, I went pretty early to a flockia. Pretty early into my career. And Gena was there, of course, and Wapio was there, and Leslie was there. And that weekend completely changed my doula business. It changed how I handled my business. It changed how I doulaed. And one of the biggest ones for me was when Wapio was talking about the birth, sort of the brain waves that happen in birth and also throughout our pregnancies. And I don't know if you've ever heard Wapio, I don't know if Wapio's talked about this on the CDP, but it's very good. Like if you can find anywhere that has anything Wapio, you just do it, because she's pretty amazing. But she was talking about how, you know, we start off in beta, like we're typically in beta, which is our thinking brain. And then we move to alpha, which is our feeling brain. And then theta, which is knowing, or sort of just knowing that this is where I need to be and what I need to do. And then delta, which is more of a cosmic consciousness. And what I thought was super interesting was how she spoke about how pregnant people are so often in alpha, so our feeling brain. And, you know, she explained how, like, this is the reason why pregnant people cry over diaper commercials or even a Twix commercial, right? Like, it doesn't even actually make sense, but we connect to it. And the pregnant person connects to it, and they get into that space of feeling. And it made me realize that when our clients are looking for a doula, and, you know, they're on their phones or they're on their computer looking at all these different websites, they aren't really in beta, which we think they are, which they might be for parts of it, like when they get to the price, that might be the thinking brain. But when they're looking at your website, they're actually in alpha. They're connecting with you on a very different level. And that's why it's so important for our branding and our website to really speak to who we are and what our strengths are. Because when they see the images that you have, when they see the colors that you use, when they see, when they read the words that you're saying, then that's what is going to pull them in. That is what's going to make them want to book that consult. It's not because of your price. It's not because of what extras you might be offering. It's because of how you make them feel when they're on your website. It's because of how you make them feel when you might be doing a community talk. They're not connecting on beta. They are connecting with you when they are in alpha, when they are feeling. And then when it comes down to the consult, they may be all over the place. But in the end, I really think when the connection is made, that our clients are booking us in theta. They are booking us in their knowing, because there is something that we each possess in us that is very unique to ourselves, and it's very unique to the relationships that we're going to build with our clients. And our clients are just going to know that this is the person who needs to be with me. This is the person who needs to be part of this journey with me. And that is not beta. That is not alpha, or maybe alpha. But that's really theta. It's because they know that you are the right person. But they won't get to that point unless they've had all this build up beforehand. You know, that's why I often say, like, how much you charge doesn't matter for a lot of, I mean, it does matter obviously for a lot of people, but for people who can, if someone is interviewing someone who is charging $900 and someone else who's charging $1,100, and you both may offer the same thing, but they connect with the person who's charging the $1,100, they don't care. They're not going to go into beta there. They're going to make it work, and they're going to go with what alpha or theta is telling them to do, what their brain is telling them to do. So I sort of just wanted to share that bit about sort of what I learned with Wapio, because I thought that, you know, that's sort of a really interesting part of the difference between a regular person's brain and a pregnant person's brain, is that they have this natural ability to just get to these different places, which they then have an easier chance getting into in birth. And we need to think about that. We need to think about what our message is actually saying to people, and how we're connecting with people who we want to be our clients. So consumers may change the way that they do things, but the reaction to the emotions will always be their biggest influence. So like I said, you just need to connect with people. For some, that's going to be online, and for others, that's going to be going out into the community, or a mixture of both. I think you really need to do a bit of both, because that's what's going to help that connection. Do we have any questions? Let me close
I have a bunch.
Okay, sorry, did I talk too much?
Oh my gosh, so many questions. I'm good. Wait, but I didn't want to interrupt you. So,
okay.
I want to go back to your slide that had the picture of the logo and then all those other photos. Can we go back to that and talk about that? It's really important to me. Go back there.
This one?
Yes. Yeah, blow that one up.
Okay. So this is an example of brand boards that I make for my clients. And when I talk about doing full brand builds, we're not just looking at, so like my process with my clients, for example, is first they have to do a really long questionnaire, which asks a lot of questions that you may not think about. What I've come up with for this client didn't just come from nothing. It came from her own words. It came from her really understanding the people that she wants to work with. And then what I have them do is they go on Pinterest and they go like wild, pinning anything that they love. And then I basically take what they've pinned and what they say in their questionnaire, and from that build a brand that actually not only shines the light on who they are and what is unique about them, but also the people who they want to be working with. And I love this particular brand so much.
Me too. I'm like, this speaks to me. Oh my God. I love the logo. I love all the colors. I like the pictures. I was like, I would hire this person.
I know. So this is the Alchemical Mama, Camaria Hopkins. She is a Bebo Mia grad and a super wonderful person, and she's multi-talented. She's an aromatherapist, she's an intuitive coach, and she's a doula, and she came up with the Alchemical Mama herself. Like, and when she started her doula training with Bebo Mia last fall, and I saw this name, I was like, oh my God, I love this name.
Oh my God.
It was just so good. And when she did come to me to do her brand, I was so excited. And I love her tagline, where practical meets magical. Like, oh my gosh, like if that tagline does not make you excited and want this person to work with you at your birth, like I really don't know it will. And when we were deciding on her logo, we spent a lot of time talking about the transformations that people go through, especially in birth. Because it is a transformation, right? Who you are before you go through this journey of pregnancy and birth is going to be very different after you've been through that journey. And so we wanted to show something that really spoke about that transformation. And that's sort of what the pelvis butterfly thing was that sort of
amazing. I love it.
And then we wanted to include the third eye as well. Because that touches on the alchemical side. And again, if you ever listen to Wapio talk about the glands, like you will go. Did I tell you about what my son, I don't know if you saw that, what my son said. He went to have his eyes checked, and the doctor's like, oh, you've got 2 great eyes there. And my son goes, what about my third eye? I was like, oh my gosh, my son is just the most wonderful thing in the world. And that's all because of me talking about Wapio. But this brand especially, just sort of like this logo, you can really see the type of client who would be attracted to this. And when you're thinking of your branding colors, you want to look at what colors actually, they all have a connection with us. So certain colors mean different things, and they mean it internally. So like when I was thinking of this brand, I really wanted to have something that was a bit moody and a little bit more mysterious, and something that was kind of sexy. And that's what that purple is, right? Like, to me, and what all the books say, purple's a really sexy, sensual color. And that's why we went with this really dark purple. And then the blue is there because blues sort of bring that connection and that trust. And so we wanted to make sure that was included as well. And then when we're building a brand, I always include the images in the bottom, because this, to me, is the most important part of your brand board, because this is sort of like the personality of your brand. This is what's going to be your guide for everything that you put out there. Is this poster that I've made matching the feeling that I feel when I see these images? This is the feeling of your brand. This is who your brand is. So when you're able to sort of make a brand board like this, it just guides you in a very easy way. Once you've made it and you love it and and it really speaks to your target market, then anything else that you put out there, you just go back. Does it match? It does. Great. So it just makes it so much easier to design anything else.
Well, there's more. Okay, so there's more questions here that I want to get to. Yeah, and by the way, all of this just makes me think of all the clothes that Wapio wears, all the colors. It just reminds me of her. So I've always known who I wanted my target market to be, but I don't know where to begin in targeting them. Do you have any tips?
So when you're thinking of your target market, you remember how we were talking about like what are their main wants, or what are their goals? So what are their pain points, basically? What is it that your target market is really thinking about? What are they really worrying about? Because you likely have a way to help them with that, right? And so when you're thinking about what their pain points are, everything that you're putting out there is basically showing them that, look, I can help you with that. One of my favorite doulas is Meg Kent out of Northern Mama Maternal, I forget the last word in her name, but she's out of Sudbury in Ontario, and she specializes in high anxiety birthers. And so I encourage you to have a look at her website and at her Facebook page, and you'll see that everything that she puts out there is so focused on people with high anxiety, because she knows that that's her specialty, and this is where she wants to target. And she makes sure that everything she puts out there really, her name is Meg, M-E-G, Kent, K-A-N-T, and her business name is Northern Mama Maternal Support. So just have a look at what she's done, just as an example, but it gives you a guide for, like, what blogs are you writing? What freebies are you including in your website? What talks are you going to be hosting in your community? I really am a big fan of hosting community talks, because if you can get in front of your people, they're going to become your clients, right? So think about ways that you can answer their pain points and help them with those pains, and then just make anything that you're putting out there really focused on those pain points.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. That's a great answer, because I think that can be the problem too, is a lot of it's just that we don't know who our target market is yet. And it took me a long time to figure out and we've talked about this in 2017 in the CDP, like, who is your ideal client?
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to figure out who my ideal client is. And I know who she is now. Like, my ideal client is 29 to 34. She is really smart, funny. She has a great sense of humor. She has no problem. She's been healthy for a long time. She knows exactly what she wants. And it's just very specific. I know what she looks like in my head. I know who she is, because I've had this client over and over and over again, and I love her, and we end up being friends, and this is what I want in my client. And so what I put out to people helps me get my clients. It helps me get my ideal students too.
Yeah, and
you're a great example of that.
Don't feel like your target market has to be perfect right away. Start out with who you think it is that you want to work with, just because that's going to give you much more focus in the efforts that you're putting out there. But your target market might change. Like, my target market when I first started out, I thought I wanted to work with people in their later 30s who were longtime professionals, and sort of that kind of have been in relationships for a long time, but wanted to really wait because they wanted their career first, that kind of thing. I thought that that's who I wanted to work with. And then as I got busier and started sort of getting my target market, but then also getting other people, I realized that that's not really who my target market was. So I had to change things up, right? And my target market now are couples in their early 30s who, the birther tends to be someone who is creative, so who has sort of a side gig or a main gig that is in the creative industries, who has a very deep trust for her body and always sort of goes for more of a Western, a more traditional or natural health methods. And I found that I really like working with women who are also bodybuilders.
Yeah.
And I am not a bodybuilder, but I love these women because they just have this real belief in themselves, and they've seen their body do really crazy things. So I didn't need to convince them of that anymore, right? So that was a very different target market from what I first started out. And now when I meet consults, like my hire rate is pretty high because I am targeting people who I want to work with, who I know I connect with. So I'm not wasting time in 1,000 consults and not getting hired because I'm just meeting people who sort of speak my language, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And that makes such a big difference in your own experience of this work. You're not going to get like, it could be so tiring if you go to all these consults and no one's hiring you and you don't know what you're doing wrong. And you're likely not doing anything wrong, except you're just not meeting the people who are right for you.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. So in regards to information on your site, what kind of information would you suggest? I hear from some people that some things are too much, while others, too much is a good thing.
Well, that sort of depends on who your target market is.
Amen.
Right? Like for some people, they won't want any birth photos in their website because their target market would be like, ew, buy it. Whereas other people will want like really, visually obvious birth photos with lots of image because that's what their clients connected to. So you need to think about your client more. The sort of thing that I have on my website, I have a pretty big resource page that answers because my main focus is on really making sure that my clients are really educated. They also have a private website off of my main website that they have access to for more information. But I have lots of freebies. And the freebies are from simple things like what to pack in your doula bag, just because that's not doula bag, sorry, in your birth bag, because these are like general questions that most people are searching about. It's not super interesting, but it's a way to get them into my website and for me to get their email. And then I have more, and then I have like videos where people ask us questions and we just answer the questions. So like we have VBAC information, we have just a lot of information. So you're welcome to go to my website and just sort of see what's on there. It's themayasnest.com. So THEMAYASNEST.com. And you'll see that there's really a lot of information. And then once I get their email, I can then start emailing them even more stuff and build that trust even deeper and send them even more information. So they feel like, wow, I haven't even signed up with this person yet. And I already have so much good stuff from her. I really need to meet her, right?
It's so good. This is so much good stuff. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being with us today. I could talk to you all day. But I want to thank you for being here today and for your time and for all the work that you do for moms and for other doulas and just how you do it all. So thank you so much, darling. Thank you to everybody who participated today. I'd love to talk to you guys some more about this Wednesday night in our private mentoring. So if you want to talk more about it then, you can join us then on Wednesday night. I think we're doing it at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time. So that's 8 o'clock Mountain, 7 o'clock Pacific Standard. So if anybody wants to join us then, you can. I will talk to you guys again soon. Love you. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Bye, Sam. Thank you so much.
Bye. See you in a month.
Yeah. See you soon.
Yeah. Bye.
In Vancouver. Okay. Bye, guys.
Yeah.
How do I do this?
I'm just looking through the messages to see if I didn't miss anything out.
End meeting.